Doing the research for this video was quite a throwback, considering how much I've covered on this topic from well over a year ago, some of it from over 2 years ago. But before I get into the content, if you haven't checked out the website yet, I highly suggest it. It's how we're beating big tech censorship. The website is a free speech network where people who are part of our community here can discuss different topics and be notified every single time that I post without fail. Signing up is free and it grants you full access to all of the site's current features. I want to be able to do this full time, but for that to happen, it's important to have a solid base that can't be robbed like it was before. We have over 100 current users on the site right now, and I'm posting daily over there even if I don't put a video out on the channel. The site is shieldstrm.com. Okay, so today we're going to discuss a scandal finally being brought to light with the exoneration of General Michael Flynn. In 2017, General Michael Flynn pled guilty to lying to the FBI about conversations with the Russian ambassador Sergei Kislyak. The FBI said that Flynn communicated with Kislyak after being asked by a senior Trump transition official to find out how foreign governments felt regarding a UN Security Council resolution on Israel. Back in mid-January of this year, Flynn's attorney filed a motion to withdraw his guilty plea. The reason was that in December of 2018, at Flynn's sentencing hearing, the prosecutors said that Flynn should receive probation because he cooperated in every way, shape, and form possible. He's answered all of their questions, complied with every request, and provided substantial assistance for the prosecution of one of his former business partners. The reason that this is also significant is that Section 5K 1.1 of the sentencing guidelines says that if the government states that the defendant has provided substantial assistance in the investigation or prosecution of another person who has committed an offense, the court may depart from the guidelines. The government admitted during Flynn's first hearing that he checked all of the boxes here except maybe number 4. In January of this year, the government just decided that they didn't want to file the motion to depart from the otherwise relevant sentencing guidelines that would have given Flynn a lighter sentence. The problem is, part of Flynn's plea agreement was that the prosecutors would file the departure motion, which they did, but then they rescinded it. The government knew about Flynn's objection to the mischaracterization of the Foreign Agents Registration Act filing, yet they asked Flynn to testify at his former business partner's trial and say that he knew that the FARA filing was fraudulent at the time of the filing. Flynn's refusal to do this left the government without a surefire lackey, so they went back on their plea agreement under the claim that Flynn didn't cooperate. We also know that the Obama administration knew about Flynn's communication with Kislyak because they had all the recordings. Remember that Crossfire Hurricane video that I did? The wiretapping came as a result of that. It was an investigation based entirely on the Steele dossier. Bill Priestap, who was the FBI Counterintel's assistant director at the time, wrote on January 24th, 2017, the same day as Flynn's interview with the FBI, "What's our goal? Truth, admission, or to get him to lie so that we can prosecute him or get him fired?" And we know the Obama administration was involved because this email sent in June of 2017 confirms that they're thinking about whether or not they can share certain information with the Trump team, such as whether or not they're trying to catch Flynn in a perjury trap, because Bill Priestap was clearly involved with this. Now, the FBI kingpins are the reason that the original Flynn interview summary is nowhere to be found. Also, notice how strange it is that Susan Rice sent an email to Susan Rice, and it was in the final moments of her time in the White House under the Obama administration, supposedly writing the narrative for Obama's interaction with the FBI regarding the Russia probe. Seems to me that Susan Rice wants people to believe without the smallest inkling of a doubt that Obama told Comey to proceed by the book. We know for a fact that that's far from what actually happened. So what happens when it's announced that the Flynn case is getting dropped? Well, you'll recognize the voice.
The news over the last 24 hours, I think, has been somewhat downplayed about the Justice Department dropping charges against Michael Flynn. And the fact that there is no precedent that anybody can find for someone who's been charged with perjury just getting off scot-free. That's the kind of stuff where you begin to get worried that basic, not just institutional norms, but our basic understanding of rule of law is at risk. And when you start moving in those directions, it can accelerate pretty quickly, as we've seen in other places. So I am hoping that all of you feel the same sense of urgency that I do. Whenever I've campaigned, I've always said, this is the most important election, especially, obviously, when I was on the ballot. That always feels like it's the most important election. This one, I'm not on the ballot, but I am pretty darn invested. We got to make this happen.
Obama's covering for himself in a private conversation where he says that the rule of law is at risk because the DOJ said that they're dropping Flynn's charges. And I know a judge recently put the DOJ move to dismiss Flynn's charges on hold, but that's not all that relevant here. Obama's talking about what a travesty of justice it is to drop the charges against Flynn in the hopes that people write off Obama as having done nothing wrong. He's completely betting on his audience buying into the mainstream narrative, but I mean, let's be honest here. If you supported Obama for 8 years, the mainstream narrative is probably all too familiar to you. But that works to his advantage. It's why most people who support Biden won't ever see the evidence that points to Joe Biden being involved in the Flynn case. Biden isn't saying that he wasn't involved because it's true. He's saying it because a large number of people will actually believe it. Acting Director of National Intelligence Richard Grenell declassified a document showing the names of any officials who submitted a request to unmask General Flynn. Notice the names Samantha Power, James Clapper, John Brennan, James Comey, and Joe Biden. So if Biden isn't involved, why did he file an unmasking request? Well, because he was involved. Brennan, the former CIA director, is one of the larger players in this charade, and he concealed intel that showed Russia wanted Hillary to win in 2016 because she was more predictable and malleable. This is what we've been saying here for over 2 years now. It also makes sense that Brennan is a contributor to MSNBC, given the fact that Operation Mockingbird is certainly still operational. But the bigger picture here is that the Obama administration worked tirelessly to pin the incoming administration as Russian puppets, and they subverted the rule of law on numerous occasions to do this. It makes sense why the vast majority of the mainstream media ran with the Russian collusion narrative too. It not only feeds their political bias and the bias of the CIA, but it makes people want to be glued to their TV. They're doing the same thing now, where they focus all of the news on one major story. So Obama's Gang of Six was Deputy Attorney General Sally Yates, FBI Director James Comey, CIA Director John Brennan, Director of National Intelligence James Clapper, Vice President Joe Biden, and National Security Advisor Susan Rice. Yates, Comey, Brennan, and Clapper briefed Obama, Biden, and Rice on the Russia probe. In the description below, I have a link to all of my sources along with all of the videos that I've done on this topic in the past, because there were a lot. So, like I said, this ties into a much larger picture, and luckily, I covered pretty much all of it in some shape or form in the past. So, the website is also linked below. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to leave a like and subscribe if you haven't. I really appreciate all of the support, and I'll see you in the next one.